In 636 AD, a single decision by one man altered the course of history. Khalid ibn al-Walid, may Allah be pleased with him, stood at the head of 36,000 Muslim warriors, facing a Byzantine force of 100,000. The fate of Syria hung in the balance. As Ibn al-Athir recorded in Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, Khalid's troops had marched through scorching deserts, their supplies dwindling, their enemies united against them. Failure meant not just defeat, but the potential collapse of the fledgling Islamic State. The stakes were astronomical. The Byzantine Empire, a superpower for centuries, had fortified Syria with impenetrable walls and vast armies. Their allies, the Persian remnants, added another 30,000 seasoned soldiers to the conflict. The Muslims were outnumbered 3-1. If Khalid faltered, the momentum of the Islamic conquests could be halted, and the dream of a unified Ummah under the banner of Tawheed could be shattered. Khalid's strategy was bold and calculated. He knew the terrain of Yarmouk's plains and the river that gave the battle its name. According to Al-Tabari, Khalid divided his forces into 4 divisions, each under a trusted commander. He placed his elite troops in the center, led by himself, while the wings were held by veteran commanders like Jaria ibn Abdullah and Shurabil ibn Hassana. The 4th division, under the command of Amr ibn Alaz, was held in reserve. Yarmouk's steep ridges and deep ravines formed a natural fortress. Khalid used this to his advantage, positioning his troops on higher ground to exploit the Byzantine disadvantage. He knew the Byzantines relied heavily on their cavalry, so he ordered his men to dig trenches and set up defensive lines to nullify this advantage. As Ibn Kathir notes in Al-Bidaya wa al-Nihaya, Khalid's understanding of the land was crucial. He had his scouts report every movement of the enemy, ensuring he was always one step ahead. Yet doubt crept in. The Byzantines launched relentless assaults, their numbers seemingly endless. The Muslim lines wavered under the pressure. According to Al-Tabari, Khalid paused. The scouts reported that the Byzantine commander, Theodoros, was preparing a massive cavalry charge. The Muslim right wing, led by Amr ibn Alaz, was under severe strain. Khalid had to make a decision that could turn the tide of the battle. Khalid's mind raced. He knew that if the Byzantine cavalry broke through, the Muslim lines would collapse. But he also knew that retreat was not an option. He recalled the words of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who had said, "The best warrior is he who fights with perfect courage and patience." With unwavering faith, Khalid ordered a feigned retreat. As Ibn al-Athir recorded, this tactic drew the Byzantine forces into a trap. The Muslim cavalry, hidden in the ravines, emerged and struck the Byzantines from the flank. The resolution was swift and decisive. The Byzantine cavalry, caught off guard, crumbled under the sudden assault. The Muslim forces, energized by the turn of events, pushed forward with renewed vigor. Khalid's strategic brilliance had turned the tide. The Byzantines, despite their numbers, were forced into a desperate retreat. The battle raged for 6 days, but by the end, the once mighty Byzantine army lay in ruins. Yet the victory at Yarmouk was not the end of the struggle. As the dust settled, news reached Khalid of a new threat. A fresh Byzantine army, rumored to be even larger, was marching towards Syria. The letter that arrived that night would change everything. The Islamic conquests were far from over, and the challenges ahead were even greater. In the scorching desert of Jordan, 3,000 Muslim warriors braced themselves against a Byzantine force of 240,000. The year was 629, and the fate of Islam hung in the balance. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had sent a delegation to demand justice for the oppressed Christians of Syria, but the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius had chosen war instead. The Muslims, under the command of Zayd ibn Haritha, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha, stood firm, their faith unwavering. As Al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Muluk, the Muslims fought valiantly, but the overwhelming numbers of the enemy proved too great. One by one, the commanders fell, until only Abdullah ibn Rawaha remained. He, too, met his martyrdom, but not before the Muslims had inflicted heavy losses on the Byzantines. The battle was a tactical retreat, but its lessons would echo through history. The Muslims returned to Medina, but the call to justice in Syria remained unanswered. 3 years later, in 630, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gathered his companions and announced his intention to march on Syria. The Ummah was ready. The Prophet, peace be upon him, appointed Usama ibn Zayd as the commander of the expedition, a testament to his trust in the young leader and his desire to honor the memory of Usama's father, Zayd ibn Haritha. The army marched towards Syria, but the Prophet, peace be upon him, fell ill and passed away in the city of Medina. The mantle of leadership fell upon Abu Bakr, the first caliph, who confirmed Usama's command and ordered the expedition to continue. As Ibn al-Athir notes in Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the Muslims, under Usama's command, achieved a swift and decisive victory against the Byzantine forces in the region of Eilat, securing the southern flank of the Muslim heartlands. But the Byzantine Empire was not yet finished. In 634, the new caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab faced a formidable challenge. The Byzantines, under the command of the brilliant general Theodoros, had amassed a vast army in Syria, ready to strike at the heart of the Muslim territories. The Muslims, outnumbered and outgunned, had only one option: to meet the Byzantines head-on and break their power once and for all. The stage was set for the Battle of Yarmouk, a clash that would echo through the annals of history. Caliph Umar appointed Khalid ibn al-Walid as the commander of the Muslim forces. Khalid, known as the Sword of Allah for his unparalleled military prowess, was a man of deep faith and unwavering courage. He had fought alongside the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the early battles of Islam and had been instrumental in the conquest of Iraq. Now he faced his greatest challenge yet. The Byzantine army, with its superior numbers and advanced weaponry, was a formidable foe. But Khalid was not one to be intimidated. He had a plan, a strategy that would turn the tide of the battle and secure the future of the Muslim Ummah. The region of Yarmouk was a strategic crossroads, a narrowing of the Syrian plain between the Yarmouk River and the steep cliffs of the Golan Heights. The terrain was treacherous, with steep ravines and rocky outcrops, but Khalid saw an opportunity. He ordered his men to dig trenches and set up defensive positions, turning the natural advantages of the terrain to their favor. The Byzantines, confident in their numbers, advanced steadily, but they were met with a wall of Muslim steel. The battle raged on for days, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. Khalid, ever the strategist, used the terrain to his advantage, launching surprise attacks and counterattacks that kept the Byzantines on the defensive. As Ibn Kathir recorded in Al-Bidaya wa al-Nihaya, Khalid's tactics were a masterclass in military strategy, demonstrating his deep understanding of the art of war. But even the greatest generals face moments of doubt. As the battle wore on, Khalid found himself facing a critical decision. The Byzantine forces, despite their heavy losses, showed no sign of retreat. They were dug in, determined to hold their ground. Khalid's scouts reported that the Byzantines were preparing a massive assault, a final push that could break the Muslim lines. Khalid knew that he had to act fast. He gathered his commanders and laid out his plan. They would launch a preemptive strike, a bold maneuver that would catch the Byzantines off guard and break their morale. The risk was great, but the stakes were higher. If they failed, the Muslim Ummah would be in peril. But Khalid's faith in Allah was unwavering. He knew that with Allah's help, they could achieve the impossible. The Muslims launched their attack with a ferocity that took the Byzantines by surprise. The Muslim cavalry, led by Khalid himself, charged into the heart of the Byzantine lines, sowing chaos and confusion. The Byzantine forces, caught off guard, began to falter. Their lines crumbled and their morale broke. The Muslims pressed their advantage, pushing the Byzantines back and back until they were routed. The battlefield was a scene of devastation, with the Byzantines fleeing in disarray. As Al-Tabari recorded, the Muslims had achieved a decisive victory, one that would echo through the annals of history. But the battle was not yet over. As the Muslims pursued the retreating Byzantines, they faced a new challenge. The Byzantine forces, though defeated, were not yet broken. They regrouped and launched a series of counterattacks, determined to avenge their defeat. The Muslims, exhausted but undeterred, met each challenge with unwavering courage. The battle raged on for days, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. But Khalid's faith in Allah was unwavering. He knew that with Allah's help, they could achieve the impossible. Finally, after days of relentless fighting, the Byzantines broke. Their forces, exhausted and demoralized, could no longer stand against the tide of Muslim victories. They fled the battlefield, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. The Muslims, victorious but weary, stood amidst the ruins of the Byzantine army. They had achieved the impossible, a victory that would secure the future of the Muslim Ummah and echo through the annals of history. The news of the victory at Yarmouk spread like wildfire, reaching the far corners of the Muslim world. The Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, overjoyed at the news, praised Allah for his blessings and honored Khalid ibn al-Walid for his bravery and strategic genius. The Muslims had achieved a historic victory, one that would pave the way for the conquest of Syria and the expansion of the Muslim Ummah. But the war was not yet over. The Byzantine Empire, though weakened, was not yet finished. The Muslims knew that they had to remain vigilant, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the summer of 633 CE, the city of Hira stood as the last Sasanian stronghold in the fertile lands of Iraq. The Muslims, under the command of Khalid ibn al-Walid, faced a formidable challenge. A Sasanian army of 50,000 men, fortified behind the city's walls and the natural defenses of the Euphrates River. Khalid's forces numbered only 18,000. Victory here was not just about conquest. It was about securing the northern gates of Iraq, ensuring the safety of newly converted Muslims, and striking a blow against the Persian Empire that would echo through history. As Ibn al-Athir recorded in his Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, Khalid knew that failure meant the retreat of Muslim forces from Iraq, leaving the region vulnerable to Sasanian retaliation. Khalid's tactical reasoning was rooted in both military genius and unwavering faith. He understood that a direct assault on Hira's fortified walls would be suicide. Instead, he chose to divide the Persian forces and exploit their arrogance. He sent a small detachment of 500 men, led by Kathir ibn Amr al-Tamimi, to cross the Euphrates upstream and attack the Persian rear. The rest of the Muslim army would engage the main Persian force in a battle of attrition, wearing them down until the moment of decisive strike. This strategy was not just about numbers. It was about psychological warfare, about forcing the Persians to question their own invincibility. The resolution came in a manner that would later be studied in military academies. Khalid's small detachment crossed the Euphrates, catching the Persians off guard. The element of surprise worked. The Persians, confident in their numerical superiority, had neglected their rear. Kaka ibn Amr's men attacked the Persian supply lines and reinforcements, creating chaos. Meanwhile, Khalid engaged the main Persian army in a fierce battle, using hit-and-run tactics to wear them down. The Persians, confused and demoralized, began to retreat. Seizing the moment, Khalid ordered a full-scale assault. The walls of Hira crumbled under the relentless Muslim attack. As Ibn Kathir notes in Al-Bidaya wa al-Nihaya, the city fell, and the Persian army was routed. But the victory at Hira was not the end. News arrived that the Sasanian Emperor Yazdijerd III was gathering a massive army to retake Iraq. The fall of Hira was a blow, but the war was far from over. Khalid's men knew that the real test was yet to come. The Persian Empire, despite its setbacks, was a formidable foe. And as the dust settled on the battlefields of Hira, one question lingered. Could Khalid and his men face the might of the Sasanian Empire once more? With 20,000 men stationed at Dathin, the Byzantine forces were twice the size of Khalid ibn al-Walid's army, and their position was strategic. The city of Dathin, located near the junction of the Jordan River and Lake Tiberias, was a crucial stronghold in the region. According to Ibn al-Athir in Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the Byzantine commander, Thomas, had fortified his troops within the city's sturdy walls, preparing for a prolonged siege. The Byzantine Empire, freshly humiliated by the fall of Damascus, sought to regroup and strike back. If Khalid failed at Dathin, the momentum of the Muslim conquest would halt, and the Byzantines would regain the initiative. The very survival of the fledgling Islamic state in Syria hung in the balance. Khalid ibn al-Walid, known as the Sword of Allah, faced a daunting challenge. His forces, though smaller, were composed of battle-hardened warriors who had fought alongside him in the conquests of Iraq and Syria. As Al-Tabari recorded in al-Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Muluk, Khalid knew that a direct assault on Dathin's fortified walls would be costly and potentially disastrous. Instead, he devised a plan to outmaneuver the Byzantines by exploiting their overconfidence and the terrain. Khalid ordered his army to march toward Dathin, but deliberately avoided engaging the Byzantine forces directly. Instead, he led his men on a circuitous route, feigning weakness and retreat. His goal was to lure the Byzantines out of their fortified position and into the open battlefield, where his cavalry and mobility would give him the advantage. According to Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidaya wa al-Nihaya, Khalid's scouts reported that the Byzantines were growing restless within the city, taunting the Muslim forces for their apparent reluctance to attack. The Byzantine commander, Thomas, eager to avenge the defeat at Damascus, decided to take the bait. He led his 20,000 men out of Dathin, positioning them on the plains near the Jordan River. The terrain was open, allowing Khalid's mobile cavalry to maneuver freely, but it also exposed the Byzantines to the full force of Khalid's tactical genius. As Ibn al-Athir recorded, Khalid's army was divided into 3 segments. He placed a small force, led by his trusted general Shurabil ibn Hassana, in a hidden position near the riverbank, concealed by the natural terrain. The main body of his army, under his direct command, would engage the Byzantines head-on, while a third force, led by Iyad ibn Ghanem, would flank the Byzantine left wing. Khalid's plan was to create the illusion of a disjointed and desperate attack, luring the Byzantines into spreading their forces thin across the battlefield. The Byzantines, overconfident and eager for battle, fell into Khalid's trap. As Al-Tabari reports, the Byzantine center, led by Thomas, charged forward, only to be met with fierce resistance from Khalid's main force. Meanwhile, Iyad's flanking maneuver caught the Byzantine left wing by surprise, causing confusion and disarray. The Byzantines, unable to regroup, were overwhelmed by the coordinated assault. The small force led by Shurabil then emerged from its hidden position, launching a surprise attack on the Byzantine rear. According to Ibn Kathir, the Byzantines, caught between three converging forces, began to panic and retreat. The once mighty Byzantine army of 20,000 men was routed, with thousands either killed or captured. The battlefield was littered with the remnants of a once formidable force, now scattered and demoralized. The victory at Dathin was a turning point in the Muslim conquest of Syria. As Ibn al-Athir noted, the defeat of the Byzantine forces at Dathin paved the way for further advances into the region. The news of the victory spread quickly, bolstering the morale of the Muslim forces and striking fear into the hearts of the Byzantines. Khalid's strategic brilliance had once again proven decisive, but the war was far from over. Reports soon reached him of a new Byzantine army gathering near the city of Ajnadayn, preparing to challenge the Muslims once more. The fate of Syria still hung in the balance, and Khalid ibn al-Walid would need to summon all his tactical genius to face this new threat. With 20,000 men facing an imperial fortress of 140,000, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah stood at a crossroads. The decision he was about to make would either secure the future of the Muslim state or doom it to ruin. The stakes were monumental. Damascus, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, was within reach. Its fall would open the heart of Syria to the Muslims. But the Byzantine forces, under the command of Emperor Heraclius, were not idle. They had regrouped, reinforced, and were poised to strike back. The Muslim army, though victorious at the Battle of Yarmouk, was now split. Khalid ibn al-Walid, the brilliant commander who had led them to victory, had been recalled to Medina by Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. The leadership now rested on the shoulders of Abu Ubaidah, a man known for his piety, wisdom, and tactical acumen. Abu Ubaidah's strategic challenge was immense. The Byzantine forces were entrenched in Damascus, a city fortified with high walls and strategic advantages. The Muslim army, though formidable, was outnumbered nearly 7-1. The terrain around Damascus was rugged, with the Barada River to the west and the anti-Lebanon mountains to the north, limiting maneuverability. Abu Ubaidah knew that a direct assault on the city would be catastrophic. He needed a different approach. According to Al-Tabari, Abu Ubaidah summoned his commanders. "We cannot attack Damascus directly," he declared. "The Byzantines are too heavily entrenched. We must divide our forces. One contingent will engage the Byzantines in battle, drawing them out of the city. The other will seize the city gates and secure the defenses." It was a risky strategy, but Abu Ubaidah was confident in his men. He appointed Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan to lead the assault on the city gates, while he and the main army would engage the Byzantines in open battle. The crisis, however, was not far behind. As Al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh, Abu Ubaidah's scouts reported that the Byzantines had received reinforcements from the northern provinces. The number of enemy soldiers swelled to an overwhelming 140,000. The Muslim army, now facing an even greater numerical disadvantage, was forced to adapt. Abu Ubaidah knew that the element of surprise was crucial. He ordered his men to move swiftly and silently, avoiding detection until the last possible moment. The resolution came on a night when the stars shone brightly over Damascus. The Muslim forces moved into position, their hearts filled with the trust in Allah that had carried them through countless battles. As dawn broke, the Byzantines, massively outnumbered their foes, were taken by surprise. The Muslim army, under Abu Ubaidah's command, launched a coordinated assault. The Byzantines, despite their numbers, were caught off guard by the precision and ferocity of the attack. The city gates, secured by Yazid's contingent, ensured that the Byzantines had no fallback position. Victory was at hand. The Byzantines, overwhelmed and disorganized, began to retreat. The Muslim forces pursued them relentlessly, driving them back into the city. Damascus, the imperial fortress, was now within their grasp. But as the dust settled, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. The Byzantine Empire was vast, and the Muslims had only just begun to chip away at its foundations. The road ahead was long, and the enemies numerous. But the letter that arrived that night would change everything. With 9,000 Muslim warriors facing 40,000 Byzantine soldiers near Ajnadayn, Amr ibn al-As knew the fate of Syria hung in the balance. The Byzantines, led by Emperor Heraclius himself, had fortified their positions in the fertile plains of Palestine. Their armies were a formidable mix of Greek, Armenian, and Gothic troops, trained and equipped far beyond the Arab horsemen. If Amr ibn al-As failed, the momentum of the Islamic conquest would be shattered. The very survival of the Muslim presence in Syria was at risk. As Ibn al-Athir recorded in Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the stakes could not have been higher. The loss of this battle would have been a disaster from which the Muslims might never have recovered. Amr ibn al-As, the commander of the right wing of the Muslim army, had a strategic challenge ahead. The terrain was open, favoring the Byzantine cavalry's charges. The Muslim forces were outnumbered nearly 5-1. Amr knew he had to exploit the Byzantine overconfidence and their reliance on heavy armor and infantry formations. He decided to divide his forces into 3 parts, one under his own command, another under Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan, and the third under Shahabil ibn Hassana. Their plan was to launch a coordinated attack, luring the Byzantines into a decisive battle where their numerical superiority would be negated by tactical maneuvering in the open field of Ajnadayn. Al-Tabari reports in his Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Muluk that Amr ibn al-As chose this strategy because he understood the Byzantine reliance on frontal assaults. By dividing his forces, he could strike from multiple directions, creating confusion and breaking their formations. The Muslim cavalry, though fewer in number, was more mobile and could exploit any gaps in the Byzantine lines. As the battle commenced, the Byzantines launched their first wave of cavalry, expecting to overwhelm the Muslim forces with sheer numbers. However, Amr ibn al-As and his commanders held firm. The Muslim archers rained arrows down upon the Byzantine cavalry, forcing them to retreat. The Byzantines then sent their heavily armored infantry, but the Muslim cavalry, led by Amr, launched a series of rapid strikes, disrupting their advance. The battle raged on, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. According to Ibn al-Athir, a moment of doubt struck Amr ibn al-As as the battle reached a stalemate. The scouts reported that the Byzantines were reinforcing their flanks, and the Muslim forces were beginning to tire. Amr paused, considering the weight of the decision before him. He turned to his commanders and said, "We must trust in Allah and strike with everything we have left." With renewed determination, Amr ordered a full-scale assault on the Byzantine center, aiming to break their lines and force a retreat. The Battle of Ajnadayn was a resounding victory for the Muslims. Al-Tabari records that the Byzantines lost thousands of soldiers, while the Muslim casualties were minimal. The victory at Ajnadayn opened the doors to further conquests in Syria, securing the northern front and paving the way for the eventual fall of Damascus and other key cities. However, the news that reached Amr ibn al-As that night was not just of victory, but also of a new threat. Reports came in of another Byzantine army marching towards Antioch, threatening to cut off the Muslim supply lines and force them into a desperate battle for survival.